asking whether there is or isn't, or should we say, if there is going to be interference in this general election, is, I think, honestly, a bit of a silly question, but I think it's one that should be asked because, of course, there is going to be interference in this general election. In fact, I think ultimately they're going to be really two different types of interference that we are going to see in this general election. But ultimately, I want to talk about, before we get into that, some of the interference we have seen before and why that type of interference will ultimately probably play, once again, quite a big part in the upcoming general election. So before we go jumping into this, please do remember to click on the like, the share button, and of course, down below, there's links to the Patreon page, the one-off donation link, the Buy Me Coffee link, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Pony Club as well. So let's crack on into this. So back, of course, in the 2016 referendum, we saw a lot of what we would call dark money interference. This was funding sources that would come from unknown, shall we say, variables, or at least individuals who suddenly had a lot of money to donate, when a lot of people said, well, hang on, how has he suddenly got all that money? That's what we saw certainly in 2016. And ultimately, this could be something that we will probably see in 2024 as well, but get more into that in a moment. We're also obviously more likely to see Russian interference, but surprisingly enough, Sunak calling this as a seemed to be suddenly surprise snap general election, we are probably not going to see any type of actual, shall we say, physical Russian interference at the moment. Probably because, just like everyone else, they have probably caught the Russian bot farms or the off guard as well. So it's very likely that we maybe won't see that interference, or at least that type of interference, till at least later in this general election cycle, maybe even a lot closer to voting day. But what are we ultimately going to see? And what more should you be watching out for general election interference? What should you do if you see this type of interference? First of all, you're going to be able to recognize, first of all, that this is that type of interference. So what do you do? So as we said, there are two types. First of all is this dark money influence that we are ultimately going to see. So look at, first of all, who is posting this information. Is it a well-known account? Is it this completely random account? And if it is, where exactly are they getting this information from? Is it from, for example, maybe the Heritage Foundation, or is it coming from unknown sources? This is obviously, the classic information, but this is the type of information that we could maybe very well see. I would highly suspect this election in particular to be not surprised if I saw a lot of, shall we say, American dark money coming into, especially the UK, really trying to focus and targeting on abortion. Because the American right in particular, now that they've managed to turn Roe v. Wade over in America, they are now worried that if they don't manage to maybe overturn it in Europe, then Americans will look in Europe and go, oh, actually, we probably should have, sort of, these abortion rights and things like that, because you can see, the advantages and everything that's going on in Europe, etc., etc. So you are now seeing a lot of money, and since that has happened, we've even seen it happen in Parliament. Randomly out of nowhere, a Conservative MP gets up and says that all of a sudden we now need to re-examine abortion laws. That seemingly came almost as if out of nowhere, but it was only just a couple of weeks after. So it would not surprise me to see that type of maybe influence and pushing from the far right on this particular subject, trying to make it somewhat of a general election issue. Would not surprise me if we saw that in some way, shape, or form. You would also probably maybe see around some other things as well. Would not surprise me if the leasehold people, given the fact that they are desperate to sort of hang on to that, um, those those very sort of privileged things. Wouldn't be surprised me if we saw a lot of heavily sort of paid information in and around that, trying to sort of push that trying to cancel leasehold or punish leaseholders is somehow a bad thing. Uh, but that is, I think, something that we could obviously see. So that is the sort of the first type of information, sort of paid dark money, um, unverified think pieces, paid for pieces by these types of individuals. The next one, of course, is going to be foreign. Now, obviously, the most foreign one you should first be thinking of course, is Russian. Now, what are they going to be posting? Well, they are going to be posting anything that they can, disinformation, um, even maybe reposting, ideas or things they could even maybe see from people in the left to say, oh well, if we start spreading this message, maybe this is going to have an effect on the general election. Um, this obviously becomes very, very difficult. You've obviously got to try and sort of identify them as a bot. Um, expect to see, as I said, probably not happening as quickly, but maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe we'll start to see this. And unfortunately, this would be directly because of um, our own current UK government refusing to actually do anything about this type of interference, because they've worried that if they did actually look into this, that they did actually do something about this, that we might maybe have to revisit, of course, the 2016 referendum. And of course, that moment, holy and sacred moment that it is, no one dares touch it. But ultimately, the Russian report, its recommendations and things that we should have implemented, is ultimately something that the next government does really, really need to look at, as well as AI as well. Would not surprise me that if we would probably see some form of fake AI voice or something like that coming from the leaders. Bear in mind, we've already actually seen this happen. If you remember when the Labour conference happened, that sort of AI thing came out about Keir Starmer berating sort of one of his well, supposedly berating one of his sort of staff members. Of course, that came out, it was all AI, etc., etc. There were a lot of people who came out initially and went, well, I think this might be real, and sort of bizarrely sat on the fence, declaring it to be, it might be real, but we don't know if it is. And I think that in itself is a bit dangerous, especially when that type of stuff, when we know the type of capabilities that we have now seen. So, to my sort of fellow YouTubers, I would say this: be really careful about reporting on um, like leaked audio until it can actually be really verified that it is the real thing. Be careful, or else a lot of us might end up eating a lot of crow when it comes out that, oh, actually, that was AI generated. Just, something a bit, I think we should all be very, very aware of in the upcoming election. But one of the big things you're probably asking, what should I do? What if you see something like that ultimately as sort of false information or something like that? First of all, put in the comments that this is false in some way, shape, or form. Um, that is probably sometimes, in some ways, potentially going to be the best thing you can actually do. There is obviously YouTube, not YouTube, on Facebook actually, does have a political reporting system that you can say this is sort of, um, fake AI propaganda, and sort of Meta or well, Facebook would expect you to sort of fulfill out why this is fake. So obviously, there's maybe a bit of work involved in saying why this is fake, etc. They want you to sort of report that. So that is certainly one thing on that. Um, Obviously, X, you now have the or Twitter, you've got the community notes. That is ironically very, very helpful. Probably the only actual good thing I think maybe Elon Musk has actually implemented at Twitter. So if something has been already community noted to say that it's false, etc., misleading, make sure to give it, a thumbs up on there. Um, be aware, of course, if you follow those rules, don't share it, don't like it, don't even downvote it. Um, because that can sometimes affect and push it in the algorithm. Obviously, I said leave a comment, etc. I know that does help with the algorithm, but if you say, "Hey, guys, this is fake," um, it is, people can then, sort of thumb it up and make sure it's the most uprated comment, that this is fake, etc. So be aware of that. And of course, what's going on. I highly do suspect that there is going to be a lot of misinformation, as I said. Um, both these two sources, dark money sources, and of course, foreign influence sources, I highly suspect this general election are going to play a significant part in many of this, in what I suspect, in fact, what many people suspect is going to be a very, very dirty campaign. And of course, they benefit massively from that if it does turn out to be such a campaign like that. And of course, we would hope that both sides as well, in fact, all sides in this election, do call out wrongful and information, just as we saw when the AI voice was generated. We did see conservative MPs come out and say that is, AI generated. It should not be shared, etc., etc. We should hope that in the upcoming general election, they will maintain that stance that that type of stuff is just not on. But they've had well over a year to do something about it, but they haven't done anything about it, which is in itself worrying. We would hope that that continues, but we'll see. So, as always, just a bit of friendly advice on what to watch out for, especially in this type of general election coming up campaign. I am, of course, still on holiday at the moment, so when you see me wearing this t-shirt, I'm still on holiday. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.